teaser, so about 15 minutes of an interview with John, so you can get to know that personality that I was talking about and the person I love so much. So I'm going to ask John a couple questions, and I think he's prepared to answer. So John, there's so many things I could ask you, but why don't we start with why write a book?
When I was in my early 20s, I was legally blind, I couldn't see, and yet I was building a business. I had an office, I had rent and people to pay. I had a building I had just purchased at 18.4% interest that needed to be totally gutted and undone and redone. And so someone said the title of your book should be Too Young for Memoirs. And I was really busy in my career, so there was no time to write a book. But many years later, I had one of my legs chopped off. And so we thought that the title of the book could be How to Lose 12 Pounds in an Hour and a Half. The problem with that was that it wasn't a diet book. And so if people saw that title on a bookstore somewhere, they'd be like, they wouldn't even pick it up because they were thin and they didn't need the advice. So that title didn't work. And finally, we came up with The Candy in My Pocket, which really refers to my life as a diabetic, type 1 diabetic. And The Candy in My Pocket, it talks a lot about the design industry. Holly wrote a review for the book, which I was really grateful for. But I wanted people to know that even in the worst of times, there was still something out there worth going ahead for and living for and doing what you wanted. And I certainly did everything that I wanted. And that's really what this book is about. So thank you for asking that question.
That's a good starter question, but there's a bunch of stories about different kinds of projects. So just pick one or two that you really were your favorite stories.
One of my, by far, most exciting projects was an estate that I designed and built from the ground up in Lagos, Nigeria. And that's a 15-hour flight from New York and connecting flights. It was 24 hours by the time I got there. But my client, I just learned this morning, is now president of Nigeria.
Wow.
It was a,
yeah, pretty cool.
It was on 2 acres of land, which in Ikoyi, which is a borough of Lagos City, at the time, 12 years ago, cost $15 million. That was before we put anything on it. The construction of the house was over $50 million. We hired an Israeli construction firm. The house had water purification system, water storage locations. We had a massive generator, and that was in a building all of its own, but then a 10,000-gallon underground diesel tank that powered the generator because why? Electricity went out like 4 times a day. There was also rooms, sleeping berths for 25 bodyguards. And the house had bulletproof glass. When I went to the city to present our drawings to the building commissioner, who was a woman, they loved the layout of the house, they loved the floor plans, they loved the way it flowed, they loved the way it designed security for the family to live in parts of the house and for other parts to be used for entertainment. And when I said there's gonna be bulletproof glass, she looked at me and she said, well, for what kind of bullets? I'm like, oh my God, okay, you have to ask the Israelis that, because I don't know.
That's so funny. All right, so John, we're going to move along, but I just want to ask for the audience here, would you recommend if they get that rare opportunity to do something as far away as Africa to go ahead and take that project?
Absolutely is one answer, and be careful is the other answer. I mean, you have to have a lot of staff to help you when you're away. And so, you know, we would be, I was gone for 3 years, 12 or 15 times to Lagos, and we were spending a week, 10 days, whatever. And so, but my clients here at home still needed to be attended to. And fortunately, I had a really great staff. My clients not only loved me, Can I say that? But they loved the people in my office. And we were like a family, and they knew that they could depend on everybody. And I mean, people could call me on my phone even though I was 7,000 miles away.
Yeah.
My phone bill monthly when I would be there was like $1,500 for my cell phone.
Wow.
When I was there, we were like afraid to eat anything. And I mean, we ate some of the food at the hotel. And the first time I was leaving, my client, she wanted to have this brunch on Sunday before we went home. And she had, oh my God, all these beautiful berries and beautiful salads and all this stuff. And we were like, and I looked at my brother who was with me, and we were just picking at the pork and picking at some other things, you know. And she said, well, John, have the berries, they're fresh, we just got them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I get it. She says, you're afraid to eat my food. She says, do not worry, our water is purified. And so I did eat that, and then after that, I felt like I could eat anything. All the times I was there, I never got sick. When we left her home that day, she's like, what time did you go to the airport? I said, well, we're leaving at like 7 o'clock. She's like, okay, I'll get you a police escort. So you just never know what is around the next corner, and you should pursue every opportunity that's out there because you just don't know what you can turn it into. I mean, that's our jobs, right? We have this vision that perhaps our clients did not, and so it's our job to expose them to things to a world they never thought of, and deliver that.
John is a personality that you just fall in love with. He's amazing. He's going to be with us through lunch selling his book. Honestly, I read this book. I bought a bunch of copies and gave them to anyone I knew who had somebody who was fighting diabetes, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it could go to anyone who's really fighting any health issue, because really for John, it's about living your life to the fullest, taking risks, doing stuff. He was never going to allow this disease to label him. So without further ado, thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I love you too.
Okay.